Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Before we get into today's video, if you haven't done so already, hit down below, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads. Now today, we are racing at the world famous 24-hour Circuit Le Mans in the Ferrari 388 Evo GT3. Now, as you'll see, the livery I'm running, or the wrap that I've got in the car, it's a fairly iconic livery for many F1 fans. So if you guys know which team ran this livery, it wasn't recently, it hasn't been in the last few years, but if you do happen to know which team ran this livery on the car, leave it in the comments below. Something I would like to eventually do is, once the channel gets big enough and I have enough subscribers, and maybe I start to be able to maybe bring in some sponsors, or maybe do some partnerships with certain brands and products. I want to start doing things like that, where I can maybe do a little contest or something like that, where I ask a question such as the one in today's video about the livery, and whoever wins, maybe I can try to send them something like a product or anything like that, or whatever it may be. But for now, whoever does answer correctly, and who the first to answer is, will get a shout out in the next video, and that's how I'll try to start for now. Now that we can move into the video, as you can see, in qualifying right now. Earlier on, I did run a little bit wide, and technically my lap was invalidated then, but I wanted to keep running just because I wanted to get a little more familiar with the track. Not that I hadn't practiced, but I just wanted another practice run just before the race. We ran pretty smooth. I didn't have much of an issue. I had learned a little bit later on in the race to take the corner where I did run wide a little bit slower. That way I wouldn't run as wide off the track, because doing that in a race earns you penalty points is not a huge deal, but at the same time something you want to avoid at all costs. So coming into the next turn, I brake a little bit too heavily when I try to come back to the right to make the next left turn, and completely bend the car, drive the nose right into the metal fence there. Now, I probably could have reset the car, but at this point, there wasn't much more I could do to recover. There was only 8 minutes for qualifying, or 2 laps, but with the laps being almost 4 minutes a lap, there was no way I was going to get another clean lap in. So I just continue on. I wanted to make it back to the pits if I could, just to kind of feel out the track a little bit more, use up as much time as I could. I just didn't want to be sitting waiting for the race to actually start. I actually wanted to make as much use of the time that I had as possible. Plus, I have found in the past that if you actually attempt qualifying and don't just hit the ready to race button, as you can see I go into a little bit of a high-speed slide but managed to catch it, that's something you're going to want to watch later on in the race. Something kind of happens. I have a big moment, but thanks to that slide, I kind of got to know how the car handled in a slide like that, so I was able to correct it. But apparently, if you actually try to set a qualifying time and don't just hit ready to race, you start ahead of people who just hit the ready to race button. So I don't know if that's true or not. That's just how things have kind of gone for me, or of what I've noticed. So moving into the beginning of the race, we start with a rolling start. As you can see, the guy ahead of me there running the Alpine F1 2022 team livery, which I thought was kind of neat. Now, right off the jump here, the green car behind me is going to get the better line going. Kind of jumps the corner a little bit and gets ahead of me. And we're going to have the black and blue Ferrari running alongside. I didn't get a good look at his number, but we're going to run alongside for a little bit. He's going to end up overtaking me in turn 3. He got a little bit of a better run into the turn. I overbrake a little bit. He carries the speed through and brakes a little bit later. So he did have a little bit of a better straight shot through the corner where I had to kind of overcorrect. Now, coming down the crest was a little sketchy because you're going to see it right now. We had a bit of a 3 or 4 car pileup, and you're going to see the number 3 in the Gulf McLaren livery just pull right back onto the track and take another guy out and just rammed right into him. And the car behind me is going to have a little bit of a moment going into the same turn that I ran wide in qualifying. So that's going to give me a few second gap on him, which is really going to set me apart and give me a little bit more confidence, and I can relax a little bit. I know it's still the opening lap, but I do have enough of a gap between the car ahead and behind that I can kind of sit comfortably without having to worry about losing time by attacking the car ahead or defending the car behind me. So that kind of set things up nicely. Coming into the first little, not necessarily chicane, but the first little dip in the straight, managed to have a good clean run through there. I learned how to use a lot of the track limits here. Almost kind of take advantage of the track limits, if you will, to try to make the best times possible and just carry the most speed through, because that seems to be one of my biggest not problems, but something I can really improve on is carrying more speed through the corners and not overslowing the car. Here I took a little bit of a wide line, gave a little bit of time up to the car behind, but we're still running pretty clean. There's a lot of things that I still need to improve on. I've only been doing this for a handful of months. I started in the summer, not even the beginning of the summer, towards the end of the summer. But I think I have really come a long way from when I first started. My very first video, if you guys remember or you've seen it, I really didn't have a whole lot of skill. I was running with the racing line, and I just caught on to how to use manual gears. So I think I've really come a long way. Learned about using a lot of momentum through corners and pretty much anything I could want to learn in the run of basics for racing, I think I've got down now. Obviously, I still have a lot to improve. Consistency is one thing that I need to really work on, but it's coming, and I think it's really going well. As you can see here, car behind there, number 16, he is really starting to make up some good time on me now. I tried to make a bit of a move to defend. I know he wasn't really close enough, but I wanted to give a little bit of just kind of, hey, here I am. I'm ready in case you do decide to dive in the next corner. I do see you're there. Kind of just a little check for him. Now, when 10 ran off there in the purple and green car, I didn't realize kind of what position. I had to catch the car a little bit there. But I didn't realize what position I was in because my relative and everything hadn't quite updated yet in my position on my overlay with Race Labs, which I will put in the description again. I put it in the description of the last video as well. Just a neat little set of overlays. You can run on iRacing, a set of Corsa, F1. You can run them on all those. But anyway, I didn't realize what position I was in, so I actually managed to move up quite a few spots in my first lap, which I was pretty impressed. Not that it took a lot of effort, just because a lot of it was due to, you know, that crash initially over the crest at the beginning of lap 1, and then the number 10 car. As you can see here, though, have a really big moment through turn 3 and 4. Managed to get overtaken, almost take out the car behind, but I don't, so that was pretty good. Happy about that. Didn't want to pick up incident points, and I didn't want to ruin anyone's race. So we're going to make sure not to do that again so that we don't lose too much time or any more positions in this race. Because I was in P7 when I crossed the line to finish lap 1. Now I'm down in P9. I had 2 cars overtake me. Not ideal. But at the same time, not terrible. We're still in the points. I believe we had a total of 16 drivers through the race. So not bad from starting in 11th, which is where I did end up starting the race after not qualifying or not finishing a quali lap. Got a really good run through the first dip in the straight, and we're not going to have enough speed, or we're not going to be close enough to catch the car ahead, but the neon green car that passed me initially at the very start of the race, that was him pulled off to the right there. So not a karma thing, but at the same time it's kind of like, haha, cool, you got the jump on me at the beginning, but I got the last laugh with him. Really starting to run a lot smoother through these little turns and dips. Trying to make up as much time as I can for the car ahead. Being that there are only going to be approximately 4 laps, because there's a 15-minute time limit on this race, and that, you know, the laps are 4 minutes. You do the math, that's only going to give us about 4 laps. So I was trying to make the most of every lap, trying to gain as much speed and time as possible. Made up a little bit of time on him here. I made a really nice run through that little bit of the hairpin there, and really started feeling good. The car felt good. My tires were nice and warm by this point, and I hadn't really had to do much battling, so I wasn't wearing the tires down a whole lot. Because being such a long track and having to run so long, not necessarily long time-wise, but long length of the track, that's really going to wear down the tires if you're battling constantly for position or defending constantly on this track. Had a little bit of a moment, had to correct there again, but really felt good with this car. I really want to race this series again. I really love actually racing at this circuit. I had a lot of fun, hell of a lot of fun racing here. Really taught me a lot about pedal control. Not that I wasn't good at that before, but really had to learn when to back off, when to go half throttle, feather the brake if I need to, lots of trail braking, and just how to be so focused because it's such a long track. It's not like you have a lot of straights on this circuit. You have the straight crossing the start-finish line that's coming up the end of the little chicane section here, and then you have the big straight with the 2 little dips in it. Otherwise, you don't really have a lot of time to kind of reset your brain and get ready for the next lap. Where in a normal, not normal circuit, but many other circuits, you have a good 1 or 2 straights to really kind of hone your mind in again, focus a little bit. You know, if you had a little bit of a rough lap or you had to battle or defend. Now, coming into lap 3, this is where things started to get a little bit more intense, just because of the way things were going. I was starting to lose some time. As you can see, I take a little bit of a slower approach through that. That way I don't go off the track and gain any incident points. I don't think I actually gained a single incident point through this race, so I was pretty happy about that. My cleanest race almost to date. And coming on to the straight, this is where I found, obviously I'm going to gain some time because it's straight, right? I don't have to be constantly on the gas and on the brake and feathering them and balancing them, but coming into the little chicanes or dips or whatever you want to call them on the main straight there, I found I started to pick up a lot better time just because of the fact that I was getting used to it. Obviously I had practiced and I had done qualifying, but here, now that I was actually able to be racing against others and kind of really feel how smooth I had to be, and not always having to take the ideal racing line. Sometimes taking the racing line, yes, it's going to be, I guess, in the best, what's the best way to explain this? I guess the fastest ideal time when you're not racing someone else, and your cleanest line through the race. Now, when you start racing against others, you have to realize that you're not always going to be on the racing line the entire race. Right now, I can follow the line as pretty much as close as I want because I'm not actually close enough to the car ahead of me to really have it be any different. I'm not going to get any draft, any, different angle of approach to a corner because I want to overtake or have to maybe look at them trying to defend. But at the same time, you want to be trying to take your best approach. Like here, I went a little bit too hot into the corner, and as you see, I caught a bit of a slide. Now, normally I would want to go a little bit wider into the turn, kind of like I did here, and then use as much of the track on the exit as possible. Basically, you're wanting to, in an apex, try to take almost the path of least resistance through a turn, if that makes any sense. Essentially, what you want to do is try to minimize the amount of rotation that you have to put on the car without having to sacrifice speed. So, going through a corner like that, it's kind of a touchy thing because you can slow the car as much as you want, but you don't want to over slow the car because when you do that, you're going to lose time. Yes, you're going to get a little bit better traction and rotation, but you're also going to start, if let's say you're in a really heated kind of battle with another driver for a position, you're going to feel the pressure to have to go through a turn a little bit faster and maybe risk making a mistake, where right now I'm just trying to make as much time up as possible because I'm starting to gain on the car ahead. So that was my objective at this point. Coming into, I believe this is the last lap of the race now, because of how things have gone through this race. I had my little bit of a spill earlier, did my little 360 into the kitty litter there at the exact same spot, and there was that little bit of a crash in this area actually here where I was able to move up a few places. I had moved up to 7th, and now I was back in 8th, and I really wanted to try to push for that 7th position again, just because I wanted to gain some extra points and really put a bit of a dent into my progression of my I rating, my safety rating. And that's the other thing. Now with safety rating, I know I'm taking a lot of different directions here and kind of talking about a lot. It's probably a lot of information to take in, but it's very pertinent information, really, if you really want to start trying to improve as a racing driver. Obviously, just with iRacing in particular, the set of course is a little bit different. F1's a little bit different. A little note on F1 I'll say in a little bit. But you want to be trying to improve as much as possible, not just your safety rating, but your I rating as well, and vice versa. So as much as you can do for both, the better. Because you're ultimately going to get better as you continue to race, and those things are going to naturally kind of improve as you improve. So it's one thing to keep racing as much as possible. I haven't been racing the last couple weeks. This video was actually recorded a couple weeks ago. I've been just busy with work and a lot of other things going on. But I'm going to try to get this up as soon as possible. And, yeah, I'm going to try to get more up as soon as possible, I guess I should say. And get my output up a little more. So, as you can see, we're really getting on the car ahead. I believe he had a bit of an incident earlier that really affected his aerodynamics. Because the front of his car or the rear of his car, you can't really see it very well until we get closer. It was fairly damaged and beat up. So, his aero was very, very poor. So, I was gaining a lot of time on him, especially on the straights, because I had the straight line speed as my car. I didn't have any damage. So the air was flowing over my car perfectly smooth, where as you can see, even going into corners, he's having to really compensate for the difference. He's probably almost losing a little bit of downforce in the car as well. You can see a little bit of damage in his on the rear of his car. You'll see as the angle changes that you might see a little bit from the front. This is going to be a little bit of a sketchy run. So I am going to really push here on the outside. Actually, it's going to be coming into the inside of this turn, and I'm going to brake very late and carry as much speed through as possible. And we're going to overtake, and we're going to move into 7th again. I was super happy about it, but he was also right on my tail. He was coming in super hot. So it's going to get a little spicy here. Now, I catch a little bit of the dirt, and so does he. He goes right around and goes into the kitty litter. I managed to catch my slide. That's kind of what I meant earlier when I said that that was really going to help me feel the car, because that's where I caught it and I was able to stay in 7th. I thought he had passed me or something. I didn't think I actually got ahead of him, but I was super excited when I realized that I actually got ahead of him, and then I caught my slide and he went right off. I couldn't be happier. Managed to finish in 7th, coming from 11th. So 4 positions moved up. Super happy. And, you know, I couldn't have asked for a better result for the circumstances I was given. Quick little note before I conclude. F122, got it back working on my computer again, so expect another episode of Career Mode coming soon to a channel near you, or this channel, I guess, whatever. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, guys. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks for tuning in. Stay classy as always, and we will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.